Hey, my name is Zion, and you're watching Straight Talk on Let's Talk.
Hey everybody, it's Mikaela and I'm on Straight Talk again. And you're like, Mikaela, why do you keep coming here? I don't know. They keep bringing me on. They keep bringing me on, man. No, they keep bringing me on. But listen. I am excited for part 2 of the conversation. Back to the future. So you already know from part 1, we have our 2 special guests. We have Mr. Zion Seeley in the building. What's up, Zy?
What's up? Hello.
Then we have Miss Mikaela. What's up, Kayla?
Hey, great to be here, y'all. What's up?
And then we have our one and only, mighty man of God, the host of Straight Talk, Apostle Michael Hurricane Miller.
Yes. We are here today. We are ready to go. Let's get this thing started.
Listen, all right. So as you saw from part 1, this is a whole discussion. This is a discussion bridging the gap between the young and the old and the young, the older generation, younger generation, you understand. So, like we did first time, we had a question, and that basically, sparked a conversation between everyone. And listen, it was a good conversation. I don't know about y'all, but it was good to me. I was like, yes, there is hope. There is hope. Hallelujah. Yeah. And so hope. Listen, Zion and Apostle got excited last in part 1. They got excited. They was, hot. The conversation was frequent. It was back and forth. We playing tennis and everything over here. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking, and I am going to jump into the question that we have to spark this conversation. And honestly, whoever wants to jump on this, they can. Is that all right with everyone?
We're gonna let Kayla jump off on it.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna do the ladies first, and then we'll just do what we do as men, and then the ladies come in and continue to smooth it like the ice cream with the cake.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ice cream and cake. Okay. All right, you got it.
You missed that? Yeah.
We got you. All right. Okay, so the question that we have to spark everything off is, Miss Mikaela, you was offered up to go first, my sister. So
I see that. That's all right. It's okay.
Listen. Do your thing.
That's all right.
So the question is, mute yourself quick and then unmute yourself. The question is, what is the biggest obstacle that you have faced in your time period that has strengthened you in your faith walk?
Biggest obstacle that I had to overcome was being comfortable in who I am and who God has called me to be. In high school, the idea of sticking out and being different from everyone was very hard for me. I would consider myself back then, I would have considered myself as a chameleon. I was able to hang out with a certain group of people and a different certain group of people, but it ended up being like I was not, quote unquote, white enough for the white people. I wasn't black enough for the black people. I wasn't ghetto enough. I wasn't like hip enough. So I was able to hang out in different groups, but I couldn't call it home, if that's what you want to say. So it was my first year of college. I had to really recognize that, hey, I wasn't called to be like everyone else. Fitting into different groups and crowds, it's good to be relatable and to be understood, but to try to stick yourself where you don't belong is very counterintuitive. So it was until I stopped and really went to God to really understand who He was, therefore I was able to understand myself, that I was able to stand in my confidence, be like, hey, if people don't like me, if I'm not accepted by this group, at least they'll see that I'm standing for something, So that was the biggest obstacle that I had to face, not being comfortable with not being accepted, and standing and being confident in being by myself if that was what it took. So that's what I would say was my biggest obstacle, and that was my takeaway.
All right, who want to jump on it?
Yeah, I could jump on there. I think when it comes to what Mikaela said, that's so true for a lot of different people, especially Christians at a young age. It's always that battle of like, all right, if I do this, I'm gonna be set apart. And I mean, of course, we know biblically, like, we're like, of course, that's a good thing. That's fantastic. You want to be set apart. But when you look at the culture and when you look at the world that we live in now, it's like, it's a good thing, but it's a good thing under certain like pretenses, you know, within certain guidelines. It's like, oh, people will be like, yeah, be yourself, express yourself, and all these different things. But then when you're truly expressing yourself, especially when it comes to like your walk with God and all of that, then they're like, whoa, because then it becomes almost like you're imposing a little bit on what they believe in. And that's where the problem begins for a lot of different people. Believe it or not, I think, since we're talking about, you know, the past versus the present and moving forward, I think it may not look the same, but I think it was similar from what I've seen, at least from heard from different experiences from the past till now, where it's a struggle where you have to almost be bold and speak out about certain things. Now, I think with the past or historically, I think people back then were way more bold, and they were like, whatever, they're gonna do it anyway. Versus now, where we kind of have to take it piece by piece and be able to do that. But again, working within the culture that we're in, so that kind of like what Mikaela said, and it's like, all right, well, it starts with us understanding who I am in Christ. You know, I think back then that was already understood. But for us, I think we have to actually go through those, kind of going back to the basics of like, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I'm called to do. This is what God calls me to do. And then from there, then building on, okay, now I want to be bold and I want to do this for God. So now I think at some point along the way, we might have lost it just a little bit in terms of the boldness. So now that's why I think we have to go back to the basics of like who God is, who God called us to be. And now moving forward, let's push on within the culture based on how they might have done it in the past or so on.
All right, Apostle, you got something to add to that? What you got to say?
Now ask me the question. Over.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the question.
Yeah,
the question is, what is the biggest obstacle that you have faced in your time period that has strengthened you in your walk? It strengthened you in your faith walk?
In the beginning.
Say it again. Yes.
In the beginning, what was my biggest obstacle?
What was your biggest obstacle?
I want to try to tie these two together because Zion piggybacked off of what Kayla said and then mentioned some things which we kind of talked about on the first take, right? And then he kind of tied it in with some understanding of something's missing, right? So now I want to give an insight to where we are now and where, in a sense, where we were then in my time. My biggest obstacle, which what? Say the next part of this question again.
What's your biggest obstacle that you faced in your time period and that has strengthened you in your faith walk?
That has strengthened me. So that means that I had a challenge, and that overcoming that challenge made me better. That's what we're dealing with, right?
Yes.
Okay. My biggest challenge was not knowing what to expect. not knowing if I could do this salvation thing, not knowing if I could take care of a wife that I don't even really know. I only went on what God say. I heard the voice of God, married this lady. 7 months later, good, boom, we got married. And now you got two people trying to learn one another. Not knowing if I'm going to be able to take care of her without running back to mom, running back to family to assist with what I'm doing, and then eventually raise a family. Because of course, you don't get a manual for marriage. The manual for salvation comes in the book, but it's on the job training. So it was a toss of staying in the faith, right, and not losing the faith. Does that make sense? Staying in the faith and not losing the faith. So it was a job in itself to stay. Because of the ridicule, people don't think you have the salvation, and then not coming out of the faith, meaning I can't do this. This is too much. You know what I mean? It's a little bit too much burden on me. There's because you're looking at people who's there already. So when I was looking at these young brothers who were coming up, was married and been in the Lord and teaching and sharing the word and memorizing, know the scriptures and know where they're from, could pray, I was lost. I was totally lost. I don't know if I can do this because I can't even explain this stuff how these guys explain. What they're saying is like, wow, how did they get that from that? So that was my challenge, right? And so there are a lot of challenges that everyone has. Now, when Zion says, and I may not quote him properly, when he talked about, did you say something was broken, Zion?
I said at some point we kind of like
we lost it.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
Yes, some point, right? And what's so good about that is it's not the generation's fault that it got lost. You know, you guys didn't lose it. It just wasn't reinforced, right? And number two, you had this time of generation had more outside influence than the previous generations. See? So there was a generation with no TVs. They grew up off radio. And it's not what goes in a man that defiles him, but what goes out. And what usually a person gets defiled by what goes in, normally by the eye gate, right? And they become defiled, and then of course it comes out, and then they become defiled. So the inside gets contaminated, and they become defiled once it comes out, because why? It's manifested now. It's a part of that person. So there was not much outside influence generations ago, right? No TV, basic radio. In my time, coming up more to my time, we had influence with TV. But again, the entertainment industry was not influential in the advertisement and the marketing to shape the thoughts of the people. So watch this now. When we talk about the culture, there was a new culture created by an outside entity, which began to shape the minds of people. So executives got together and determined, we're going to wear our pants down low. They started seeing people wearing dreadlocks. They marketed it, and then they made dreadlocks popular through stars and entertainers. Even they saw gold teeth. They popularized that, right? These were community things. It wasn't, drug dealers only had golds when I was coming up because you couldn't afford it. And if you did get gold, you had to get a gold on Christmas. That was your Christmas present, one gold for Christmas. Not you could go out and pick golds now. So the culture was shaped by an outside entity, which now causes a mixed reactions, like Kayla said, because she's with different groups and trying to fit in, but not fitting in. Why? Because the culture got mixed up. So you've been given a culture that's really not yours, so that they could shape the way you think, to keep the generations confused and off balance. So my challenge was different because there was no outside influence. It was just, this is what you got. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to deal with. Will you be able to handle it? I don't know. This is a big challenge. I don't know. I never did this before. So on top of that, I think generations now are not worried about whether or not they can stay safe. I don't think that's really a conversation, really. It's more about, what can I do while I'm safe? Am I correct, or am I kind of shifty off that?
I would say it's like in between, because I feel like the biggest thing that could be an issue or a concern of young people who are Christians now is like, how do I maintain? Because I see why it's beneficial. From what your testimony is, I've seen God work in your life, or Jesus is this to you, so Jesus is this to me, but how I still want to do some of those things, or I still want to do this. So to a certain degree, like, you're correct, but at the same time, like, there are still like some concerns about it.
Yeah, so it's there. It's there. Yeah. But at the same time, that's not the focal point, right? The focal point more is how I maintain doing what is good and what I would like to do, and all this comes together, you know? And thus, you know, you'll find more in this time. I don't want to call it a generation, because it's actually a time. You got adults battling with these things. So it's just not in the generation. It's even in adults, because they wasn't fluent in scripture. They didn't go all the way in the lifestyle of salvation and really became totally sold out. They were just this churchgoer type mentality, generally speaking now. So when there was a churchgoer mentality, then you only do just enough, right? So the essence of when you really want to say, okay, I'm either going to do this or I'm not, you're juggling, am I going to fail? Am I going to be successful? But when the culture now has influenced, the society has influenced it, that, hey, Steve Harvey can give you advice on God, Oprah can give you advice on God, then, hey, R. Kelly, and then you got Christians and stars mingling together, then it gives a more free thought of not necessarily, well, can I deal with this challenge or not? How am I going to fit this in? How am I going to maneuver this? How it's going to work together and become congruent, you know? And that's how I'm seeing more of the challenges, what the young people are dealing with today, because it's a lot of wrestling in the mind. More wrestling with the mind now. We had wrestling with habits then. It was the habits keeping you away. But now it's more wrestling with the mind, because drinking and almost smoking, and generally speaking now, is more of a occasional party thing, a hangout thing. It's associated with party and having a good time. So if we're not having a good time, we don't have to do these things. We can just relax and chill. But in my time, it was woven into, this is what I do. You know, we call breakfast smoking weed in the morning. Did you have your breakfast? Yeah, we smoked some. And then that's what we got up to look for to go do. I mean, it still happens today, but more what I'm seeing in this culture is that it's more mental, right? On dealing with the challenges, on how they're going to fit it in, than in our time. Then we were dealing with more of habits and stuff that we needed to get rid of in order to balance out this salvation. And that's why we were thinking, like, man, I don't know if I can do this. Why? Because I still got this hang up here, still got this hang up here, and all this got to go away. Because then there was no there was no leeway to say, okay, you could do this, and then you get away. God is grace, God is love. No, it's either this or that, you know. And of course, that came through the influence of the old mothers. But certainly, I would never say that the generations lost it. I think it just wasn't strengthened through the time, because somewhere along the way we dropped the ball during time. Every step of generation dropped something and didn't reinforce. And then of course the bombardment of the society, of the social forces, what they call in sociology moral entrepreneurs. This is actually a term in sociology when I study. Moral entrepreneurs, people in influential places deciding what your life should be. So if they say it's a conspiracy, then it's actually not, because they teach it that there are persons totally involved in how we should think, how we should move, and how we should function with one another, and thus creates the effect that a generation lost it, when in fact it was attacked and diminished. So the Bible says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and that's what the more entrepreneurs actually did through the devices of Satan and demonic forces, right? Use these tools to diminish the quality of what is pure and what is off. And so now you have a divide. Grown people saying that the children don't want anything, they don't want God or what have you. And then you got this young people saying they too hard, they out of touch. Which in reality, a wedge has been put between these two great generations, if you will, or a time span of people, to hinder they call them old because they know the way, they call them strong because they're young. And when you put those two components together, nothing can be stopped. You know what I mean? And so that was my challenge, more of habit. And then what I'm seeing now is more mental, of what to maintain, how to put together, kind of what you kind of said, mixture in that with what Kayla said. But I'm kind of interested, right? Maya, how do you see it though? Because your scope is kind of different, I think.
So, number one, as we all know, I grew up in the Miller household. That's Baba show. I grew up in the, and I didn't really realize how. Not saying that my household, my upbringing was weird, but it's very uncommon, is what I realized growing up. Like, it's common, but it's not at the same time. So we didn't have TV. It was no TV in your room. There was no TV in your room. We didn't really have social media like that. We knew church, school, and home. That's what we knew. Like, I really didn't realize how much me and my brother were like low-key was, I don't want to say sheltered, but just not involved with the world until, I never forget, Michael Jackson died, and we went to summer camp, and they were like, Michael Jackson died, and y'all, I said, Michael Jordan? Oh my God, for real? I had no idea who Michael Jackson was. I had no idea. I had no idea at all. But that's just how, I knew church. I knew God. We had little elements. Now, I must say that we were prepared for the world, because we had those very real conversations with our parents, like, hey, this is what it is. This is what XYZ is. I'm gonna tell you what it is for you actually get out there, and then you're exposed to it in the wrong parameters. So I think for me, are you asking me like what was my biggest obstacle? Is that where you're asking me, Apostle?
I mean, in the same limelight of the dialogue, because I think we tied two things together. The challenge, and then we dialogued off that to see two different times. There was two different kind of challenges, and I think Zion. I keep Zion, right? Or Zion.
Zion.
Zion, Lion, and Zion, right? Good.
Yeah.
That's an awesome name. I mean, this guy's just Zion Sealy. Is
and
just,
he's tall.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Isn't that something? I'm going to leave that alone because I was going to say something. And he would have been like, please don't do it, right? Yeah. But you understand because so Zion kind of brought it together and kind of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so we got this dialogue. And so when I'm seeing what Zion's saying, what Kayla's saying from what I'm saying, I don't see that experience for you because I saw where stuff was dwindling from a gap between my parents and their parents. How they grew up, right? They were restricted. And then what, and you always heard, I'm not going to let my child go through what I went through. And so there was not only a sheltering, but there was a dumbing, I don't want to call it a dumbing down, but you were giving access.
Yeah.
Right?
So to
things that you wouldn't have normally gotten when you were young. So you can do it. I didn't want able to do it, but you could do it. Which you understand? So you had something different.
So because of how you and mommy how you and mommy brought us up, my mindset as a young person was and still is very different from my counterparts. Meaning that the norm, I struggled with being different, but being different didn't necessarily really bother me like that. And that's because I grew up in a household where it was like, you are set apart. That's something to be okay with. Let me explain to you why you are set apart. Let me explain to you that you have a purpose. And so the enemy attacked my mind because I grew up in a household where my mind was built up all the time. It was always built up. And I'm a person, I'm very much like my father, where it's like, if my mind is set to something, that's what I'm going to do, and you can't sway me. The only person that can sway me is Jesus. And so the mind battles, yes, I did struggle with it, but I didn't necessarily have the desire or the mindset to like, oh, this is what's in, let me get on what's in. Does that make sense? Yeah,
you just mended two things together. Exactly what two different ages. Yeah.
I hope. Yeah, I didn't have the mindset as in, oh girl, did you hear? Did you see that new show? Oh, I'm gonna jump on. Like, I didn't have that. It was okay for me to not be in style or not follow the trends. Like, I didn't care. I really didn't care. My mindset was, man, start your own thing. Do your own thing. So like, even in high school, I remember people saying, man, you dress so weird. Like, it's a cool weird though. Like, you wouldn't necessarily
you be cool and weird.
Daddy, your camera, you done moved your camera, man.
That was worth a camera move, cool and weird at the same time. Wow.
No, I remember because one specific day we went out of town with the school and I had on a white t-shirt. I had on some jean joggers, ripped jean joggers and some Air Forces and a bandana, and everyone's like, I would never see someone put that together, but it worked. Like, I don't know why it worked, but because I was brought in like, yo, you do it yourself. You don't have to follow everyone else. Make your different. Make your different the style.
You got your own style, right?
Yeah, you got your own style, and so because I was brought up very much so in a household where not only standard was priority, but walking in and being comfortable with set apart and being a peculiar people, because I was brought up like that. Now, or even growing up, I was unbothered. I was really an unbothered child, and people thought I was strange but I was just so comfortable with who I was as a person and how I am and how I look, that it just didn't matter to me. And so when I see even people do like, oh, like, even with nails, you see I have nails on. I couldn't have nails for a long time. I couldn't put on lip gloss.
That's right. No makeup.
The first time I really, really wore makeup was my 12th grade graduation pictures. And I came home and my dad rubbed my makeup off my face. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. You know, so I grew up very like, you don't have to be like everyone else. Be you and who God called you to be. And so because of that, when I see people in my generation who kind of struggle with the influence of social media, because social media loves to give us this image of what we should be and how we should act, and so it's very an attack on our mind, our self-esteem, our confidence, and just who we are as people. Because when you look at just like models and stuff, now we're coming out with, now you're seeing more diverse models, and now more models are looking different. But before, it was one specific type of model, skinny and tall. You know, that's all you saw. You couldn't be short and model. You couldn't be heavy, and it was really no plus size models. You know, and now you're seeing, now you're seeing models with different type of skins. You're seeing models with natural afro hair, like, so now there's, being different is more appreciated. But like Zion said, we're told to express ourselves, but when we fully express ourselves, it's like, oh, way too much. That's too much. And me as a person, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna throw it to whoever it is. Me as a person, again, being brought up in who you are. I always had an issue. People always had an issue with me because they would say I'm too much. That's too much. Oh no, you can't do that. So people always wanted me to water down who I was, because I was to them, I was too expressive, and I was too confident in who I was. I was too bold in who I was. And so one obstacle that I see, basically agreeing with everyone that they said, is basically, you know, the mind games, and the world wants us to be different, but it doesn't at the same time. They want us to be different in their parameters. Right. And so, yeah, I hope that makes sense. Anybody else?
So let me ask this now, because I just realized something. I'm coming to you, Zion, because let me ask you this: were you brought up in the household of saved parents and things of that nature, or were you frequently going to church, or you had that real
influence of salvation in your life?
Yeah, great question. So